Hey Luke, it's the most wonderful day of the year.
What day is it, Michael?
It's Public Domain Day 2021, or it is at the time we're recording this, which means that loads of great films are entering the public domain from 1925, and anyone can now adapt them and use them as their intellectual property.
Oh, goody, Michael. What have we got?
Well, we've got the only thing that really matters, which is that The Great Gatsby is entering the public domain, and we're now due for a Muppet adaptation, according to TheVerge.com. And it says, great works are entering the public domain in 2021, opening up a host of puppet opportunities. So are you excited for the Muppets doing The Great Gatsby?
Yeah, I am. But I'm not sure that'll happen because, as we know, Robin Hood, for instance, is in the public domain. And we haven't had a Robin Hood Muppets, have we?
Yeah, it kind of seems like spurious logic to say, well, they can now do this. So
yeah,
and
of course there have been so many Robin Hood movies, so many like King Arthur movies that, it's not really a day of celebration when things go into the public domain because then we're just going to get a shitload of really awful movies. Based on The Great Gatsby. That's what, based on precedent, I think that's what's going to happen, Michael.
No, yeah, I mean, who would have thought that the people who make movies would be really bad at their jobs?
I know. Anyway, let's get into Gladiator.
I'm looking forward to another year of this crap.
Ha.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. Today we are celebrating the 20-year anniversary, not of Gladiator, but of Gladiator winning Best Picture, because obviously we're approaching Oscar season, even though it's further away than it is usually, and therefore we like to look at a Best Picture winner. And today we're looking at Gladiator. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Gladiator?
Sure thing, Michael. Yes, 21 years since Gladiator has been released now because it's New Year's Day. It's 2021, but of course, 20 years since it won its Best Picture. So while we're kind of in between the 2 years, as it were, this is what we do. And of course, as you said, Michael, it won Best Picture. And did it deserve to win Best Picture? Well, we will get into that. Gladiator is a 2000 epic historical drama film directed by Ridley Scott and written by David Franzoni, John Logan, and William Nicholson. It stars Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Ralph Muller, Oliver Reed in his final role, Digimon Honshu, Derek Jacobi, John Shrapnel, and Richard Harris. The film was released on May the 5th, 2000 in the United States, so over 20 years ago. And Michael, can you tell me what the box office was for... No, budget first, sorry. We're doing the budget. Yeah, see, I got confused because last week we did Last Dance of Courage. Didn't have a budget, I think. Or didn't have a box office, one of the two. Anyway, can you tell me what the budget is for Gladiator?
No, I mean, it looks very expensive. I imagine it in my head being very expensive. So I'll go for what feels like a big number. It's probably going to be even more than that. So let's go for 80 million. You
know what, Michael? I thought you would guess under because you usually don't seem to get trends. And you did guess under, but not by as much as I thought. The budget is $103 million, which, as you know, is quite a lot, especially for 1999 when this movie was made. Is it more expensive to make than Phantom Menace, which of course, cost a lot to make as well around that time. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, that's something I'll look up quickly in a bit. But can you tell me what the box office was for Gladiator?
Well, I honestly have no idea, but I guess I feel like I made a decent amount. So maybe, crap, this is going to be so wrong. 200 million.
I mean, look, Michael, right. Why did you guess 200 million? Walk me through it.
My logic was I thought See, the thing is, obviously, sometimes a film winning Best Picture isn't a guarantee it did that well. But I'm like,
that is correct.
Yeah, but I'm like, well, it was a big film.
It was a big film,
and I would think a modest blockbuster would. Well, I was kind of thinking. So
why would you think it's a modest blockbuster? Why would you think that?
I don't know.
There are cultural things that still exist to this day that people say, "Are you not entertained?" They do the thumbs up, thumbs down thing.
But, I guess. Well, the other thing is, okay, this is my logic. Okay, so what I've heard is that this film kind of reintroduced the sword and sandals genre.
That is
correct. Up to this point, people, and my logic is, well, because it was reintroducing it, it was kind of it was setting the scene, and therefore.
Do you think if it reintroduced this genre, it would have only made $200 million?
What I'm thinking is people weren't expecting it to do that well because it was kind of a dead genre, and the fact it did 200 million, people were like, "Oh, that's a decent amount for
of a budget of 100 million." You think that would have changed things?
Yeah, I suppose. Do
you want to actually have maybe a non-dumb guess?
550 million.
Closer. The box office was 460.
Good.
460. That's the thing. I was like, he can't go low. But again, he just think about with your brain, Michael, for 2 secs. If this movie had a massive cultural impact, as you will have known from being a human being in the Western world, and you have the knowledge that it introduced the sword and sandals genre back into cinema, so obviously it was not only going to double its budget, it was going to quadruple it.
You did this with Home Alone. You always think that I don't know. Your logic is that if a film is really famous in the culture, that it must have made loads of money, and I don't know. I mean, I guess that's possibly proving to be true based on our experience thus far. But in my head, I've never actually made that connection. The film made loads, but
it's not always the case. But those films are referred to as a cult classic. And you think of them as cult classics. That's what Wikipedia refers to them anyway. And of course, Gladiator, you would not describe it as a cult classic. It's very mainstream, of course. It won Best Picture, and Russell Crowe became one of the most famous men in the world after this. So yeah, Gladiator. By the way, that Phantom Menace did cost more to make by like $10 million. By the way, which version did you watch of Gladiator? Did you watch the 2-hour 50-minute version?
2 hour 50, yeah. Is there a longer one?
Well, no, there's I saw on Wikipedia, 2 hours 35 minutes is the actual theatrical cut. Yeah, I think we watched some deleted scenes, and they're probably scenes where Russell Crowe is talking to Connie Nielsen. I would bet that would be the case. Those are scenes that probably got cut out. But anyway, Michael, Gladiator, did you like this movie?
Well, Luke, this might sound perhaps a bit controversial, but I thought this film was sort of just okay. I didn't love it. I just thought, yeah, that was good. So yeah, that was my opinion. What did you think?
I thought it was decent, and I would probably agree with you. It's good. The thing is, this movie gets a bad reputation because it won Best Picture. And people are like, well, it's probably one of the worst movies to ever win Best Picture, so people have a negative perception of it, like it's overrated, etc. But actually, if we compare it to another movie, which was a big historical epic, featuring an incredibly famous actor that won Best Picture, which also had its 25-year anniversary in 2020, Braveheart, as you say, Michael. This movie is so much better than Braveheart. It's really quite a bit better. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It ain't bad. It's a fine watch, really, even if it is quite long. And the version we watched was especially long.
It is shorter than Braveheart though, which is another reason why it's better.
Yes, I guess so. So Michael, can you tell me how many nitpicks you have for Gladiator?
3, 1 per hour.
Okay, I've got 1.
Okay.
So I'll go first. So it's about Lucille. So Joaquin Phoenix, who plays Commodus, finds out that Lucille, his sister, is, or what you call Lucilla, not Lucille, Lucilla, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, is planning to betray him. And how does he find out? It's the most stupid thing possible. Lucilla's son, I can't remember what he's called. Fuck it. What is he called, Michael? Tell me.
It's like Lucius, or is it?
Yes, it is Lucius. You are correct.
Okay,
Lucilla and Lucius. Wow, great creativity there with the names. Lucius says to Commodus, "Hey, Maximus is going to save the world," or something along those lines. He's going to save Rome. That's it, not the world. He's the savior of Rome.
Rome is the world.
So why would Lucilla say that to her son, or mention that around son? Oh, Maximus is going to be the savior of Rome. Like, what? Why? Why would she do that? And it's actually, maybe it should be more than a nitpick, because it's quite a pivotal point in the movie. Because then Joaquin Phoenix realizes, oh shit, these people are plotting against me. I've got to stop Maximus, etc., etc. It's just really bad way for him to find out, rather than any political manipulation. It's such a cop out. Of a thing, yeah, and it's stupid. She wouldn't say that anyway around her son, or she would be really stupid to do that. So, Michael, that's it really for my nitpicks. Yeah, let's talk about yours.
Well, I've got one that's similar to yours actually, which is on the subject of people, I guess, making things a bit too easy for Commodus and seemingly underestimating him. this one, I think you could make an argument around it, but I feel like Aurelius, obviously Marcus Aurelius, he's supposed to be set up as somebody who's quite shrewd and clever, and it just seems weird to me that he could not anticipate that Commodus would potentially do something sneaky. Like, he literally says, like, Commodus, oh, he's an evil man, he's not got morals, blah, 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 and therefore it's weird to me that he decides to tell Commodus that he will not be emperor, and not be emperor, and doesn't make any effort at all to tell everyone else that that's his wish. And it just seems like, considering how smart he's kind of set up as being and how interested he seems to be in the idea of a peaceful transition of power, to not even consider the possibility that Commodus would try and kill him, or, kill him and succeed, was a bit silly. This one's the tamest one, but I don't get why they would have killed Maximus's family in such a theatrical way when nobody is near the house. Because obviously, usually if you kill someone to, like, crucify them, the point is it's to make them an example to everyone else. But no one's even around, so what's the point in doing it? That's tame. And the final one is, I pointed this out, I can't remember the last time I pointed this out, but fire arrows. They just weren't used historically, and I'm going to point it out every single time it shows up, but I've already expressed why they're stupid.
Yeah, great.
So,
yeah. Fire arrows. We hate to see them, folks. So, Michael, as mentioned, this movie won Best Picture. Russell Crowe also won Best Actor. Was that deserved?
Well, that's a good question.
Think? Yeah. No. Well, what do you think?
Like, no, not really, because I wouldn't say, to me, I don't think this was a very emotionally resonant performance. It was kind of just like, why does Russell Crowe win, but Gerard Butler in 300 doesn't? Like, people just say, oh, Gerard Butler was just around shouting and screaming, and sometimes he'd look sad. I feel like it's kind of a similar thing with Russell Crowe's.
Yeah. It also won Best Costume Design, Best Sound and Visual Effects. It received 4 BAFTA awards. And Gladiator has also been credited with reinventing the sword and sandals genre. As we said, you have things like Troy and Hercules coming after this, and rekindling interest in entertainment centered around ancient Greek and ancient Roman culture, such as the television series Rome.
Yeah, I actually like to think that the Disney animated Hercules was actually the inspiration for this. Like, that Ridley Scott was sat there watching that, I don't know.
Well, apparently he saw a painting of a gladiator, and that's what set him off. So yeah, let's get into the plot, I guess, of Gladiator. Russell Crowe, portrays Roman general Maximus Decimus Meridius, what a great name, who is portrayed by Commodus, the ambitious son of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who murders his father and seizes the throne. Reduced to slavery, Maximus becomes a gladiator and arises through the ranks of the arena to avenge the murders of his family and his emperor. And also his dad, because he considers Marcus Aurelius his dad, because he said, "You're my son." So yeah, they had a father-son relationship, I guess. You could argue that. So yeah, he's pretty pissed off with old Commodus. And yeah, Michael, this is obviously it's a big blockbuster. I feel like this is maybe it is the last big blockbuster, to win Best Picture. I'm not quite sure, but certainly, did Avatar win Best Picture?
No, surely it didn't.
No, well. That's the thing. It won a bunch of awards. I hope it didn't. I don't think it did, but maybe it was nominated. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna check this while you talk.
Okay.
I guess.
Well, you check. So, Gladiator. Well, let's start off, I guess, with overall, Michael, it's quite a simple story, isn't it? It's quite a simple story. A guy seeks vengeance, and I guess those are the most popular stories, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, actually, yeah, people do like a good vengeful story. By the way, I found out Avatar did not win Best Picture. However, Gladiator was not the last blockbuster to win Best Picture. The last blockbuster to win Best Picture, in my humble submission, would have to go to 2003, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
Yes, that is a good point.
That was a big blockbuster,
yes.
So yeah. But yeah, since then it's been...
It's slightly different, though, in the vein of Gladiator and, say, Braveheart. Slightly different. But yeah, no, that was, won Best Picture. The last massive movie to win Best Picture was Return of the King. But again, this was one of the last few. So, overall, the plot on this movie, Michael, do you know, I thought of this, and I think it sums it up quite well. It's the Virgin Commodus versus the Chad Maximus.
Oh yeah, that is actually quite funny. Yeah, it is. It's interesting in a way, because obviously, I guess the good thing is that the conflict is subtle and subtextual, insofar as the big conflict is not like one guy has to go punch another guy and beat him up, but rather that the issue is it's about getting popularity because of this idea that if Commodus kills the Chad Maximus, then I mean even that name, it's like as you pointed out, that therefore he would hurt his standing with the people. Yeah, and obviously that's an interesting take on the conflict, or a way to have conflict.
It is an interesting take, and it's the correct take. You think about the Virgin Commodus. His father hates him. His sister hates him. He's such an incel. He wants to have sex with his sister. That's the only woman. He can't even speak to another woman, just his sister. And, everybody loves Maximus. Like, his soldiers love him. Like, his own... of course, Commodus' own father loves him more. His sister loves him. All the people love him. All the senators love him. Everyone loves Maximus. And everyone hates Commodus. You can see why he, why he wants to kill this guy so bad.
I know.
It's like he's everything he isn't. It must be so hard for Commodus.
It's like Maximus is Raymond and Commodus is Chris.
Oh, what was that from?
Everybody loves Raymond and everybody hates Chris.
Oh, I see. Great, that's really funny. Yeah, but I think that sums it up well. The Virgin Commodus, the Chad Maximus, and of course Maximus. Let's talk about the early bit of the movie first off. You have a big battle taking place, and Maximus is trying to take down the Germans, or the Germanians as they're known. They show the genius of the Romans, that their efficiency, their just domination, because of course they are the dominant force in the world at this time, and this is when they're at their apex, and Maximus is at the tip of the spear. So yeah, I like how they just absolutely crushed the Germans. I'm just gonna call them that. Yeah, go on.
No, yeah, I like that too. I thought that was really good because like you say, it shows how I guess the issue of Rome, what everyone likes to say about Rome, is that it was pretty much it fell down due to internal issues more so than anything else. And obviously a good way to show that is to show that this isn't about an external threat to Rome, and the best way to communicate that is to just have them completely mop the floor with this significant army.
Yes.
Right at the beginning.
Yes. So then we find out that Emperor Marcus Aurelius is worried about his legacy, and I don't really know why, because he just says he's worried and he wants to change stuff. Maybe because he is dying, that he's now had an epiphany. Like, he doesn't want to be remembered for the fact that I guess Rome is basically turned itself into just an imperial killing machine. But, he was on the throne for about 25 years. Is that what he said? So we had plenty of time to stop that. And, he's saying he wants the Senate to take over again and for Rome to be a republic. I'm like, well, it's a bit of a shit thing to do. Like, you've had power for like 25 years, you haven't changed it. As soon as you die, right, things are changing. Now that I'm walking out the door, there's this position which I've held isn't going to be held anymore. Yeah, it's a bit lacking in principles, I have to say.
Marcus Aurelius would make a good contemporary moderate liberal politician, wouldn't he? Like, being in charge all this time, not doing anything.
Yes, exactly.
And then being like, oh man, I wish I could have done all the things I wanted to do though.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, he's writing.
It's too late now.
Writing op-eds in expensive scrolls after his death about how Rome needs to change, etc. We need to fight for a better Rome. It's like, bro, you could have changed this. You didn't have to hand this fucking murderous imperial, I guess, nation off to your son. You could have done something better beforehand. Then his son finds out, of course, and he kills him because the emperor wants Russell Crowe, Maximus, to be the new emperor, and he says, well, you haven't been corrupted by politics, of course. And when's the last time, Michael, you had somebody take control of Rome who was a general or a soldier who hadn't been quote-unquote corrupted by politics? When's the last time that happened? And I think everything went swimmingly after that. Am I right?
I know, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nothing went wrong.
Weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Logic, if you're a general, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, I know. And you see the appeal of Donald Trump right there. Donald Trump wasn't corrupted by politics, was he? That's why he needs to be president. And of course,
we thought
great.
Commodus was Donald Trump, but actually it's Maximus.
Ah, yes, of course. Everybody loves Maximus as well. And everybody loves Donald Trump. Yeah, no, but seriously, it's like, I just find the logic weird. It's like, there's this general who, maybe he has never sought power, but maybe the fact that he wants to go back to his family proves that he'd be a good leader, etc. But, you kind of think, well, he's probably won't put his heart into it. He'll probably just, maybe order people around a bit, and maybe he'll have other generals who will become more powerful. It's like an incredibly dicey thing to hand over the empire over to a general and expect things to get better, essentially. Anyway, so Maximus is, of course, appointed the next emperor. His son, Joaquin Phoenix, is not happy about that. He's mad about it. He kills the emperor. Then he tries to kill Maximus. And then he fails, of course. Maximus escapes. And then we have a scene where Maximus goes back and sees his family dying. I think it's very, very good how they're revealed. You see them hanging from a building. And obviously it's quite grim, but I like that. That was good. Good use of the camera, Ridley Scott. Then he's sold into slavery. That kind of happens like...
Yeah, that is a bit weird how that just happens.
Yeah, right after, yeah. Yeah, it's like a bit of a... I don't know, maybe these slavers like scout, like burnt out like villages. Like, maybe we'll find some... unconscious people lying around here.
I imagine they're like vultures, like as you imagine like someone walking in the desert, and as they're starting to get a bit kind of thirsty, the slavers just start circling around like.
Yeah, because he's on his property as well. I just think he's on his property, so I don't know how that happens really.
Yeah, like they really could have just fallen asleep, woken up, like how did I get here?
Yeah. What the fuck's happening here? Now?
You never know when they're gonna get you.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, what a day! My family's died, and I've become a slave. Gee whiz, eh? I can't get much worse than this. Yeah, it really is a double blow. His family doesn't die, and therefore he becomes a slave. Like they are two independent events, as far as I can tell. So then he becomes a gladiator, and that starts about 1 hour in, I think. All the background. Yeah, it takes quite a while to get to the point where he is actually a gladiator, and I guess that's good because you want to show all the background. So when stuff happens later on in the movie, it's more impactful because we've been there. When he sees Commodus, I feel like a worse movie would just immediately start when he's a slave and just tell us about the background, and to show flashbacks, for instance. And this movie, it is long, but I think it is worth it that it does it. What do you think?
No, yeah, I do agree. I think obviously having... I think there is an expectation of these historical epics that you do have this build-up, and I think it's just something I'm kind of used to at this point. I do think it's good, and obviously, like you say, you do get the battle and stuff, which is interesting and helps to establish all that. It means you get to introduce more characters. So yeah, I think it's good, and obviously there's the revenge aspect too. Although I also would agree with you that it would be much better if him becoming a slave and his family being killed were more directly related to each other, because it is a bit weird how that's not the case. But no, yeah, I definitely agree that having the vengeance, the need for his vengeance be set up before he starts going gladiator, it works and it's good, and slow pacing is good in general.
Yeah, no, I do agree. So then we get into the main meat of the movie, and it basically what it is just him rising up through the ranks of Gladiator until he has a final battle with the Emperor Commodus. And even Commodus says it. He says it's a striking story, general to slave, then fighting the then Gladiator, fighting the Emperor. And I'm like, yeah, it is quite a striking story, is it, Commodus? You've nailed it. And that's essentially it. It's kind of a meta moment, because it's like, well, that is the story, just what he's doing. There's nothing really else to it. It is relatively simple, but I guess the most popular stories are the most simple. I guess, like myths and fables and all that, but it doesn't mean it's interesting though. And that's the thing. There's other things which we do, which I do like, which we'll get into next. But yeah, it's pretty early on. It's easy to see where this is going. The first time I watched it was like, yeah, he's probably going to fight Commodus in some sort of way, and then he's going to die so he can be back with his family. And Commodus is also going to die because he's the evil guy. And yeah, that's what ends up happening, I guess. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It does feel very predictable. And I think that's it. The film, especially on, like, obviously you mentioned how even on the first watch it's kind of predictable. On the second watch, it's almost downright boring, because it does kind of feel like there aren't really that many twists. And I guess part of it is, it almost goes back to, like you say, it's the Chad Maximus versus the Virgin Commodore. And the issue is that there's no point where things
By the
go
way,
badly
Michael,
for Maximus.
it is Commodus.
Sorry, Commodus.
Not Commodore.
I think I was thinking about Commodore was like the name of like a general on a ship, isn't it? Because I think that's in Pirates of the Caribbean. He's called Commodore. Yeah, sorry, yeah, Commodus. The Virgin Chad versus the Virgin. The Virgin Chad.
I want to see that meme with them two mashed up together. That'd be great.
Yeah, the Virgin Chad versus the Virgin Commodus versus the Chad Maximus. In that, basically, Commodus is always just rubbish. Like he never has a real meaningful moment of just completely getting ahead of the game. And meanwhile, Maximus is always just, everything's always going well for him. And I guess the other issue is because you know that Commodus sucks so much and Maximus is so great, in every single scene you can just be like, well, what's Maximus going to do? Probably just the best thing ever. What's Commodus going to do? Just the worst thing ever. The characters aren't really three-dimensional in a way, which also makes it kind of boring. So it makes it all predictable because one of them is just so much better than the other person.
Yeah.
So you're just like, well, nah, it's hard to get invested in this.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about Maximus's character and his character arc in a bit, but yeah, you're right. He is perfect, and like we said, Commodus is not perfect. And yeah, I think, yeah, like I said, the story is relatively simple. You know where it's going. Let's point out, I think, the bits we like and the bits we don't like. So I think the best moment in the plot, or in the story rather, happens to be when the Emperor is going to kill him, and he doesn't, and he's forced to walk back inside.
Yeah, I like that bit.
Yeah, and he's I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Of course, it's quite a famous line, and that is the best one. That is the best line in the movie. And I guess all the action scenes are pretty good as well. You could argue, as well.
Yeah, although you could also argue that I think the thing with action scenes is they're only as interesting as you are invested in the characters. So, or obviously, you could say an action scene is objectively good, and like this doesn't have kind of terrible, horrible, fast cutting or shaky camera or anything like that, because I don't think that had really been invented at this point. But yeah, obviously, from a getting invested in it perspective, obviously it's limited insofar as you can't be like, for example, the fight of him versus Commodus at the end. Just like, well, you it's very predictable.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, and I agree with you definitely that the scene of Commodus realizing he can't kill him is the best scene, because it is the moment where the film's more interesting, because it's about more than just them fighting each other.
Yeah.
Physically,
it's about the whole context of it. It boils down to that, and then they both realize their positions, there's how much power they've got in this situation, and then the movie progresses from there. So a bit I didn't like Maximus. This is from, I'll just read it out from Wikipedia. Maximus's next fight is against a legendary undefeated gladiator named Tigris, I don't know, of Gaul. Commodus has arranged for several tigers to be set upon Maximus during the duel. Maximus, however, prevails. Commodus orders Maximus to kill Tigris, but Maximus spares his opponent's life. He is called Maximus the Merciful by the crowd. Angered at this, Commodus taunts Maximus about his family's deaths, but Maximus turns and walks away. Okay. The important bit there is when Maximus essentially saves Tigris's life. And I'm like, well, why did the crowd then, the crowd are quite bloodthirsty. We have seen this consistently over and over again. Yeah. The Emperor gives the thumbs down. So why, they all want him to kill him. So why, there's no look, I thought there'd be maybe, Russell Crowe's like, no, I'm not doing this. This man was a great gladiator. I don't want to kill him. And the crowd were like, oh, okay. But the crowd are like, kill him. And the Emperor's like, kill him. And he decides not to. And then I'm like, wait, why didn't they want Maximus to kill the Gaul guy? Are they that, is he a cult leader? They've completely changed their opinions now. Like, Maximus is not just a popular gladiator. He's the leader of this fucking cult around the Colosseum. Whatever he says goes. Now they all switch on a dime. Now they're like, "Yeah, go Maximus! Don't kill this guy. You're Maximus the Merciful."
Yeah, it almost feels like a sketch where it's kind of like the sketch is like. And I've kind of got an image of it in my head of something like this, where basically everyone agrees with this person when they think they know what the person's going to do, and then the person does something else, and they all completely change. And like, oh, we want to do that, so like, kill him, yeah, Maximus, kill him. And he doesn't come like, oh wait, don't kill him, yeah, don't kill him. And it's like, I agree with you. It's like, I actually thought that too. It doesn't make much sense, and then also again, it just contributes to the idea of like, well, Maximus can't put a foot wrong, so it's like, well, that means that no matter what he does, because I guess that's the issue in a way, because we said like, the issue is that Commodus and Maximus are stuck in this kind of political game of chess when it comes to gaining popularity or whatever. But if Maximus can literally do exactly what the crowd is commanding him not to do and still be considered like the best person ever, even though we've got no reason to think that the crowd would go along with it, it's like, well, what tension is there? What can't he do? He could literally, basically anything Commodus does, apparently, Maximus can just be like, hey guys, it's me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine, we love you. Yeah, I agree with you. It's disappointing.
The crowd have seen that meme. They know that Maximus is the Chad. They know it. They literally, they have gone on whatever the Roman version of the internet is, and they've seen the meme, and they're like, yeah, I agree. Whatever Maximus does, we're with him. Whatever Commodus does, like, if he just takes a sip of water, boo. boo Commodus, we don't like you. And yeah, like you say, it just saps the whole tension out of the movie. Okay, Michael. So yeah, we'll talk about the. I don't really like the end bit either. Because they it's kind of the same line of thinking because they all, of course, they treat Russell Crowe like a hero, and to be fair, he is a hero. They just leave like Commodus like in the sand, in the dirt, like everyone. And I don't get it. If you treat the Emperor that disrespectfully, like how the hell is he still living anyway? Like if every single person hates him, yeah. It's just like you're taking it too far, because if he was despised this much, he wouldn't be emperor anymore. So Michael, let's talk about Maximus, his character arc, because I've got a few things to say about this in particular. So here's the thing: he is a very stoic person. That much is clear. He doesn't really display a lot of emotion at any time really, and it feels like, of course, he wants his character, his motivation. He wants to go back to his family, and then he can't do that. Then he gets put into slavery, yada yada. And then his character arc really starts when he is told to be a gladiator. And I was thinking, well, when he's not doing anything when the big German guy's punching him. I was like, oh, he's just gonna say to his owner, yeah, I'm just gonna die. I just want to be with my family. I'm not gonna fight. Just kill me. But he doesn't do it. He doesn't do that. He is told he is going to be a gladiator. So he is one. So the next scene, he's, doing gladiator stuff, he's fighting. So I don't know what the point of that previous scene was. I mean, there was a question, asked of him by the owner. Was it Proxima or something? He asked him, what does he want? What does Maximus want? And yeah, to be fair, I'm like that as well. Up until that point, it is unclear. Obviously he wants to kill the emperor. But before that, he doesn't know that being a gladiator will allow him to kill the emperor. He's just being a gladiator because he has to. Like, where is the motivation? I mean, you could argue, which we'll get onto in a bit, maybe it's a commentary on the barbarity of Rome itself. He doesn't have a motivation, but he just does it anyway. But yeah, the movie doesn't make that clear. So overall, I'm just like, well, Maximus, where is your motivation to do stuff? What do you actually want? And yeah, I guess you could say, yeah, he also wants to fulfill his father, Maximus Aurelius's dying wish of returning Rome to returning Rome back to the Senate, back to a republic. But yeah, just initially, it's just kind of like, well, he's just doing stuff because he is doing stuff because he's a gladiator, and it's a kind of there's no scene of him like talking to Juba, his friend, or anyone else really about. Is this going to be my life now? He's just like, right, I'm doing this now. So, and I don't think that's the best way about it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, basically, I agree with you. It's like the character arc is a bit strange because ultimately, you don't really know what he wants, or what he wants. I guess is it's so having a character who wants to die in the first place kind of means that it's like, well, you can't get invested in his self-preservation too much, especially seeing as he literally says even if he died, he'd get revenge in the next life anyway. That's kind of a weird line. And then obviously the fact that he doesn't pick up the sword and is as if he has some kind of serious objection to fighting, and then he just continues fighting, and that is weird. The fact that he doesn't express in clear terms what it is he wants and like what his desire is in a meaningful sense is also there. And yeah, like the idea that I guess he does want to make Rome better in the end because that's what Marcus Aurelius said. But then even that, like I guess the other issue is he doesn't get that involved in the politicking either. Like when he gets introduced to the Lucia, was that her name? Lorraine, what was her name?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Lucia.
Yeah, that was something like that. Yeah, when he gets introduced to Lucia, he kind of just dismisses her. It's like, oh, I don't care about your politics, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, it would have maybe been more interesting if he actually had a motivation of getting involved in the politics, and it was kind of. I guess that his interactions with Commodus took place outside the ring as well, like that you began to see him kind of enter.
Well, he does at the end though, doesn't he? He says he wants to grant a dying man's wish. He wants to return Rome back to the people. He said that's the thing. He doesn't really think that for a lot of the movie. Like you say, then suddenly at the end, oh yeah, it's his motivation.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, okay, that's fine, but you haven't really communicated that up until now that you care about that. And so yeah, it makes sense why he doesn't just straight up kill Commodus when he can do it, because he's like, I don't care, I'm fine with dying, I just want to kill you. Like when he meets him for the first time, when he does that speech, I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just kill Commodus right now? Why wouldn't you do that? And you could say, well, that he's playing the long game. He wants to basically make the Senate
that's
take
not
over.
established.
Yeah, but that isn't established until later on, essentially. Yeah, so that is a problem. And by the way, it's not just me who thinks the character of Maximus is a bit thin. I got this from Wikipedia. This is quite interesting. With 2 weeks to go before filming, the actors complained of problems with the scripts. William Nicholson was brought to Shepperton Studios to make Maximus a more sensitive character. Nicholson reworked Maximus's friendship with Juba and developed the afterlife thread in the film. I don't think the friendship with Juba was that great, to be honest, but yeah, the afterlife thread was, I guess, a good thing. He said he did not want to see a film about a man who wanted to kill somebody. The screenplay faced many rewrites and revisions, with several actors providing changes. Crowe allegedly questioned every aspect of the evolving script and strode off the set when he did not get answers. Crowe tried to rewrite the entire script on the spot. You know the big line in the trailer, "In this life or the next, I will have my vengeance." At first, he absolutely refused to say it. Crowe said, "I read the script. It was substantially underdone. Even the character didn't exist on the pages." And that set about a long process. So yeah, essentially he wasn't happy with how bad the character was, but he was just like, this is just a one-dimensional like killing machine. Like, I just want my vengeance, blah blah blah. And yes, and then William Nicholson also brought in to make Maximus a more sensitive character. So he cares about his family as well. That's his motivation. But yeah, it's kind of weird that that they recognize that there's the problems with this character, and they still just did not make him better, because I think it's a very weak character. Again, like you say, he's perfect at everything he does. He's not that interesting, and his motivations just don't really make that much sense at times. And despite all this, Russell Crowe got Best Actor for playing this character, which is which is the worst thing, really, because he's just quite boring, really. Well, yeah. What do you think, Michael?
I agree with you that the idea that Russell Crowe won Best Actor, that is the weirdest thing about this. And to be honest, I didn't know that. So that's why I was really surprised at that, and I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. I agree with you. It is the character itself, and in a way, I would almost say, in a strange sense, it would almost have been more interesting if the Gladiator Maximus was just a mindless killing machine, because at least then that would give him some kind of fault, I guess, because it would be like, oh, he's got a fault in that he is just like a mindless killing machine, and maybe that's like, that would give him more interest. So in a way, by setting him up, almost by making him more sympathetic, it's kind of like that makes him less interesting. So in a way, I almost feel like I might have even preferred the film of him just being a mindless killing machine, because at least then I'd be like, I mean, obviously I would imagine that actually there's more to it than that, and it probably would have been disappointing in its own way. But the issue is, not only is he, it's not so much that he isn't sympathetic, because he's sympathetic enough, it's just that he's not sympathetic in an interesting way. It's not like he's kind of complicated and you're like, oh, I can understand what he's doing. It's almost like you can understand what he's doing so much that he just becomes lame and predictable. And yeah, it's like I say, there's no reason for him to have won Best Actor, because I would say there's barely even any acting in this film. Like, most of the time he just kind of stands there and says lines to people. Like, he just says lines. Like,
yeah, he just says lines. Yeah, I don't think his character arc was that good at all, really. To be honest with you, he doesn't really have an arc at all, and that's pretty key when he's the main character. But anyway, let's talk about, I guess, the theme of this movie, if there is one theme, which is the brutality of Rome. The whole concept of Rome itself. So, of course, pretty early on in Joaquin Phoenix's reign as Commodus, Commodus understands the barbarity of Rome, and that's why he does the games. And the senators are saying, well, it's a waste of money. He's fucking up the grain supply, blah blah blah. But it's like, no, he understands that what really runs Rome is blood, not the Senate, not their high ideals. It's the blood. It's the battling. It's the violence. Like I said, it's the brutality. And yeah, Maximus, his character basically is constantly at a, well, maybe a war is a bit on the nose comparison, but he's battling the barbarity of Rome. First he's a soldier, then he's a gladiator. First, of course, as a soldier, he just wants to go back to his family. He doesn't want to compete in these wars anymore. He doesn't want to win land. He just wants to have a nice life. He doesn't want to engage in this violence. But the fact that he's a Roman general and he's pretty good at it means he can't have a normal life. And then, of course, he's dealing with the barbarity of Rome as a gladiator as well. Forced to basically live or die. Battling for his life in front of the baying crowds. and he wanted to go back to his family, but and just die, I guess, as well. But the very nature of Rome means he can't live a peaceful life, and that's the thing. The "Are you not entertained?" line. Remember that? Of course you remember. It's one of the most famous lines. It's a great line. It's a great line. He's saying to the crowd, like, "Are you not entertained? This is what you like? Like that's what I thought he was saying. This is what you like. You like me cutting people's heads off. Come on, laugh at this or cheer at that. How pathetic are you?" That's essentially the insinuation. But you don't see, again, talking about how weak his character is before, you don't see any of that developed later on. Him talking about how shit big a gladiator is. He just goes ahead and does it because he's this robot. But again, bring it back to what I said before. You could argue that the fact that Maximus just is a gladiator right away, a commentary on the barbarity of Rome itself. He just does it because he's a robot. Rome has trained him to make sure he's a gladiator. He fights basically. He doesn't need a motivation. But then he says the "Are you not entertained?" line, so a bit of a contradiction there. But yeah, what do you think, Michael? About that theme.
I think obviously it's kind of a obvious enough theme to go for, because I think we do have the association obviously with the Colosseum of Romans being very violent. I mean, there's other examples. We also have the idea of Rome being very decadent, as is indicated with stories like the vomitoriums and things like that. So there is that idea that Rome was basically destroyed by decadence, and the kind of extreme violence is, I guess, considered an example of that. And I guess the issue is that the film, it doesn't do too much with that. Obviously, the thing is, I guess there's not too much you can do with it from a thematic perspective. Like, there's not too much you can intellectualize or problematize that idea, because it's a pretty obvious point to make. But obviously the thing they could have done is make that theme more emotionally resonant through the character of Maximus and his attitude towards it. And yeah, definitely when he is shouting at the crowd and stuff, that works. And I mean, obviously you could even say if that him refusing to fight was supposed to mean anything, which apparently wasn't because he just decided to later, then it could mean that he didn't want to fight. So yeah, it's not built up too much. And then obviously the idea that the fact that he fought is itself a criticism of Rome, well, yeah, I guess as you were kind of saying, that just runs into inconsistencies, because it's like, well, in that case, if he himself is to do with Rome, how can he even criticize, or if he himself has the exact same symptoms of hyperviolence and stuff, how can he even criticize anyone? So yeah, I mean, I do like the idea that he wants to be peaceful, and it seems like it's literally impossible for him to be at peace, because obviously, Marcus Aurelius doesn't want him to be at peace, Commodus doesn't want him to be at peace because he wants him to come back to the place and lead it for him. But then at the same time, the senator is completely A-okay with the idea of him showing up with his army and then proceeding to leave immediately. So again, that's kind of the issue. And I think, so I kind of...
Well, I think he's doing that for political reasons, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's thinking,
so
what's the worst... It's the least worst option, I think, in that sense. And so, of course, at the end of the movie, it's not just about basically killing Commodus. It's also about him, returning Rome to what it once was, a higher ideal where maybe the Senate is, the thing that the people look to as, the most important thing in Rome, and the democracy of it all is the most important thing, not, the bloodshed, the violence, etc. The Colosseum, I think at the end the Colosseum was being retired. I think that was the point of the last scene in the movie. Yeah. And so, I guess it's a good theme. I do like the theme, It's like Rome is such a violent society. And, the "Are you not entertained?" line is good, but then again, it's not really fleshed out that well. I do think there's also, I guess, a bit of irony as well with the whole, oh yes, Rome is, look at all this violence going on in Rome. Isn't this awful? We want to make Rome better again, and, that's the message of the movie. Really, or the theme of the movie. But of course, why did people watch this movie, Michael? Why did people watch it?
Violence.
Yeah, it's because of the violence. It's because of the action scenes when Russell Crowe is a gladiator and he's beheading people. That's why people tuned into this movie.
Yeah, it's meta.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the irony. It's like the message is like, yes, we must retire this violence. We must stop Rome being such a brutal place. But it's like people are watching it or watching the movie because Rome is a brutal place. And they...
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. But the other thing about that is you mentioned how... Ridley Scott got this idea from seeing a gladiator. And I do kind of get the impression when watching this film that the gladiator was his central focus. The big thing he was thinking is, oh man, gladiators are cool. I want to tell a story about gladiator. And the fact that you said that there were issues with the script, the fact that this film, as we'll get into, I think, very quickly, has some issues historically, all of that points towards the fact that Ridley Scott, he didn't want to tell a tightly written story, because we know that because the script was a disaster. He didn't want to tell a really powerful emotional story because we know that this character doesn't really have much emotion. He certainly didn't want to tell a historical story about a historical point in time because this film has nothing to do with the historical point in time it's describing. So the only thing he must have wanted to do, as evidenced by the fact he got the idea from looking at a gladiator, is tell a story about gladiators. So the obvious conclusion is, well, he thinks that gladiators are pretty cool.
Yeah, he wants the gladiators to kick ass, as he'd say in his American accent. Yeah, the gladiators, and that's what a lot of people took from the movie as well. You know, like it's popular. So let's talk about the political elements of this movie, Michael, because whenever there's politics involved, political machinations, that's interesting. I like that kind of stuff, and we have early on, of course, Commodus. He's being a short-sighted leader. He's selling grain to give people their games. He wants to dissolve the Senate. I mean, is this Commodus or is it Donald Trump, Michael? Which one is it? Am I right? And yeah, I did like the bit when his sister has him kill the soldiers who did not realize that Maximus had escaped. By saying that, well, you should kill them for your treachery. They don't respect you. And then he says, I wouldn't want to be your enemy. And it's ironic comment. I did like that, but yeah, but basically she's telling him to do that, so the soldiers are not on his side. She's playing into his desire to be respected and his desire to show strength. And the political machinations is great. You do love to see it, I think, and that was great. But then there isn't really a payoff, unfortunately. And Maximus kills him, and yes, the guards do kind of affect things by not giving Commodus a sword. But at the end, Commodus could have survived and Maximus could have died. I mean, this pissing off the soldiers and pissing off the Senate as well. Did it really have that much of an impact that he wasn't good politically, wasn't playing the political games right? Because
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he could have just not fought Maximus at the end, and he would have been fine. He could have just killed Maximus, and there we go. And then he just clapped his hands. Well, on with my life. So that's the thing. I do like the political stuff behind the scenes, but there isn't a real payoff. What do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Like it makes me think about a similar similar TV show, the Spartacus Netflix series, which is objectively not good. It's trashy and it's rubbish, but to be fair, I think it knows it is. But the funny thing is the politicking going on in the background there is way more sophisticated and I guess way more meaningful and impactful than what happens here. And obviously in the traditional Spartacus story, what is actually going on in the background of, I think, every single Spartacus film and every single piece of Spartacus media is people also explore the rise of, or the decline of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, which makes sense because obviously the revolts of Spartacus did represent a weakness in the Republic. So people will always explore that thing and it always has an actual impact on the plot. Whereas here it's kind of like the politicking, it does feel almost completely unnecessary with the rest of the plot because it's mostly just about Commodus and Maximus get into the ring and he kills him, and you kind of think, well, yeah, like I say, the politics didn't need to happen for that to happen, and if that hadn't have happened, arguably the politics wouldn't have made a difference.
Okay, Michael, so yeah, we shall now get into the historical accuracy of Gladiator. So, of course, the film is loosely based on real events that occurred within the Roman Empire in the latter half of the 2nd century AD. Ridley Scott wanted to portray Roman culture more accurately than in any previous film. He hired several historians as advisors. So the question is, Michael, did it work? You've got some things to say, haven't you?
Yeah. I have two relatively small ones, but they were big enough to not be nitpicks. I'll go in order of from the least issue to the biggest issue. One, it was actually rare for non-adoptive sons to succeed an emperor. I suspected this and I looked into it and I pretty much confirmed it's true. It was often the case, the idea of an emperor adopting a son based on what he perceived to be that individual's merit and having that person succeed him was incredibly common in the Roman Empire. And the only reason I say this is a minor thing because I don't think the film explicitly contradicts this, but I think the film kind of treats it as if the idea of Marcus Aurelius adopting Maximus is this big unique thing, and that obviously Commodus is really pissed off by it, whereas the reality is that this was something that happened like all the time. So again, it's minor because I don't think the film explicitly contradicts it, but I think it kind of implies. This one, most gladiators were volunteers who didn't die And again, this one's kind of minor because I'm like, well, you could make the argument that Commodus is ramping up the brutality specifically because he's a very brutal person. But considering that this film is called Gladiator, and therefore you'd think it would want to portray the idea of being a gladiator accurately, it's worth noting a common misconception about gladiators is that they were all slaves and lots of fights were to the death, when the reality is that a lot of the time the fights wouldn't be to the death, and they were actually done by professional volunteers who just... Because it's kind of funny in a way, because one of the lines specifically that Proximo says, he says, you're supposed to be an entertainer. And the funny thing is that's true, but a lot of gladiators were entertainers who were professionals at going out there and entertaining the crowd and not dying, much the same way as modern wrestlers today don't actually want to get hurt, they just want to entertain the crowd. So those are two reasonably big things. And then the final one, and this is the big one, this film kind of lies massively about the entire history of Rome. And the reason why I say that is because I think if you were to interpret this film, you would say that the way it's presenting things is that Rome is kind of rubbish, and it gets to the reign of Marcus Aurelius, and he's reflecting on how rubbish he thinks Rome is, how disappointed he is in Rome, how much he just hates all the violence and, the corruption and all that kind of stuff. And therefore he appoints somebody else to take over. But this guy Commodus comes along, and he's a bad egg. He's the worst of the worst. And then obviously he dies in the end, and Rome enters into a period of it being a republic and things being much better.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, that is the exact opposite to the truth, because the death of Marcus Aurelius ends what's considered in Rome the reign of the 5 good emperors, which is different from the year of 5 emperors. The year of 5 emperors was when there was 5 emperors at once, and the reason why there were 5 emperors at once is because they were all assassinating each other so much that they literally had 1 year where 5 men sat on the throne. But the reign of the 5 good emperors was basically, I'm not going to go into all of it, but the 2 big ones are Trajan and Hadrian. And the point is that many historians have said, a lot of them probably traditionalist conservative people, but they have said that the age of the 5 good emperors, or the reign of the 5 good emperors, was the best period in the history of the world because it was a period of unprecedented peace in Rome. It was a period where law was the highest virtue in the land. It was a period where Rome was at its greatest territorial extent. And that was under, from, I think, Nerva through to Marcus Aurelius. And that was the best period. And then basically this guy called Commodus comes along and he screws it up by being a dictator and all that kind of stuff. And then, the entire thing goes to pot and basically everything trashes and falls down because he's rubbish. And I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and the analogy I came up with, it would be like if somebody made a film about the British Empire, and they said, the way they set up the film was having George V, who was obviously the king before World War II, be like, oh man, the British Empire is really rubbish and it's terrible and I hate it. And then World War II happens, and then George V goes, oh good, the British Empire is going to be fantastic now. And if you're watching that as a British person, you'd go, wait, that makes no sense. The British Empire was at its height prior to World War II and immediately declined after World War II. And that's what this film does. So it's like it's literally lying about the grand scope, which is worse, because it's not just like taking a small little tidbit and getting it wrong. It's basically completely presenting the exact opposite to history. Yeah. So that annoyed me. Okay. But you can get into more stuff.
Yeah, no, that is true. That's what I saw on Wikipedia. It's like, well, yeah, in real life, the death of Commodus did not result in peace for Rome, nor a return to the Roman Republic. Rather, it ushered in a chaotic and bloody power struggle. And of course, that's quite different to the end of the movie when everybody is saying how great Russell Crowe is, and they all agree to return Rome to make it a republic. And everyone's happy. Very, very different in real life, as you said. So yeah, let's just get into another couple of things about historical accuracy. Marcus Aurelius was not murdered by his son Commodus. He died in Vienna, and it was an epidemic apparently. It swept the Roman Empire during the reign of Marcus. So yeah, he died from it. Rather like COVID, Michael. Similar thing. There is no indication Marcus Aurelius wished to return the empire to a republican form of government. Like I said, it didn't really make sense in the movie. And moreover, he shared the rule of the empire with Commodus for 3 years before his own death. Commodus then ruled alone until his death. The film depicts Marcus as defeating the barbarians in the Marcomannic Wars. In reality, the war was still ongoing when Aurelius died. Commodus secured peace by a treaty with the 2 Germanic tribes allied against Rome immediately after his father's death. So yeah, look at that, Commodus getting peace. Bit weird. The character of Maximus is fictional, although in some respects he resembles the following historical figures: Narcissus, Commodus' real-life murderer, and the character's name in the first draft of the screenplay. Spartacus as well, he kind of resembles him. The whole freeing the slave stuff. Although Commodus engaged in show combat in the Colosseum, he was not killed in the arena. He was strangled in a bath by wrestler Narcissus. Commodus reigned for over 12 years, unlike the shorter period portrayed in the film. Yeah, a bit different, like 12 years or 12 weeks, a bit of a different time slot there. In the film, Lucia is portrayed as a lone widow, while Lucilla was the widow of Versus and also had a son by that name. The son died young, long before the reign of Commodus, and she also married someone else after his death. And she'd been married to him 11 years by the time her brother became emperor. And she had 2 other children as well, which the film admitted. The character of Maximus had a similar career and personality traits as documented by Herodian to Claudio Pompeianus. Pompeianus? Claudio,
Pompeianus.
Claudio Pompeianus, who married Marcus Aurelius' daughter, Lucilla, following the death of Lucius Verus. It is believed that Aurelius may have wanted Pompeianus to succeed him as Caesar in preference to Commodus, but was turned down. Pompeianus had no part in any other major plots against Commodus. He was not depicted in the film. Yes, that's interesting. So it looks like the character of Maximus, the character played by Russell Crowe, is a mashup of 2 characters, Narcissus and Claudius Pompeianus. So that looks like it's a mashup of those 2 to create this character. Lucilla was implicated in a plot to assassinate her brother, so this was true, along with her stepson and several others. Then she was exiled to the island of Capri and then executed 1 year later. In the film, character Antonius Proximo claims the wise Marcus Aurelius banned gladiatorial games in Rome, forcing him to move. The real Aurelius did ban the games, but only in Antioch, as punishment for the city's support of the usurper Cassius. No games were ever banned in Rome. However, when the emperor started conscripting gladiators into the legions, the resulting shortage in fighters allowed Lanistae, such as Proximo, to make windfall profits through increased charges for their services. Okay, that's interesting. So, Marcus Aurelius actually did help Proximo, ironically, in real life. So, there you go. You have all of that stuff going on in real life, which of course didn't happen in the movie. Got some parts right, got some parts wrong, but I think overall, the biggest omission is, of course, Commodus's death did not lead to peace. That's pretty crucial. The king as well didn't want to return to a republican form of government. That's pretty crucial as well. And also, the fact that Commodus ruled for 12 years. He had a decent rule instead of just a short amount of time. That's pretty crucial. But it's not the worst ever, but it's still pretty bad overall. And interestingly, at least one historical advisor resigned due to these changes. Another asked not to be mentioned in the credits, though it's stated in the director's commentary that he constantly asked, "Where is the proof that certain things were exactly like they say?" Historian Alan Ward of the University of Connecticut believed that that was the historian being asked that. So the historian is being asked that. So, it says this is the case, but why should we believe that? Historian Alan Ward of the University of Connecticut believed that historical accuracy would not have made Gladiator less interesting, stating creative artists need to be granted some poetic license, but that should not permit for the wholesale disregard of facts in historical fiction. Yeah, I think it's probably better than, say, Braveheart, or what was that movie we did, Bohemian Rhapsody?
Oh, yeah.
That was great. But, it's still some pretty big errors here, just rewriting history, and especially when things happened like in the complete opposite to how this movie portrays. It's kind of bad. What do you think, Michael?
No, I agree. And actually, I like that point that was made that it being historically accurate wouldn't have made it less entertaining, because that's kind of the thing. These, like, the difference is that obviously, and in some sense, I almost feel like in the case of Bohemian Rhapsody, you could make the argument that at least with Bohemian Rhapsody, it was done to make the film, I guess, narratively work better. Whereas in this case, it's like, I don't think you can say that the film would have worked better or worse without having these elements in there. And, in the case of Braveheart, I mean, it's the case of it got a lot of tiny things wrong, but I don't think it got as many big things wrong as this film did. And I do kind of think, like, I've often thought that it's a potential that historical films, one of the things that I don't think they get credit for when they can do this is that they can literally educate you, and that's something that most other films can't do. But you can watch a film that is about a historical person and you can go, oh, I learned something from that film. The issue is nowadays with films like Braveheart and Gladiator around, you can't really say that now, because even if you do watch a film and you see loads of interesting stuff, now you have to go and be like, wait, let me just check that the exact opposite thing didn't happen. And that's kind of how I feel like this film, it could have been an opportunity to teach about ancient Rome, and I'm not saying that should be its first and foremost responsibility, but it would have been a nice thing for it to do. It would be nice if you could go at the end of that, I learned something interesting about Roman history.
Yeah.
About, but instead, it's kind of like, you're just like, I learned, I guess you learn it because you find out that the exact opposite stuff happened, and you go, okay, I learned that the death of Commodus led to a terrible period in Roman history.
Well, that's
not from the film, but from looking it up.
That's the thing. This is interesting because I was going to talk about the impacts that it had on people's viewing of ancient Rome. The film's mainstream success is responsible for the increased interest in Roman and classical history in the United States, according to the New York Times. This has been dubbed the Gladiator effect. The Cicero biography Cicero received a large spike in sales after the release of the film. The film also began a revival of the historical epic genre with The Last Samurai, Troy, The Alamo, King Arthur, Alexander 300, and its sequel 300, Rise of an Empire, and also Robin Hood. The Gladiator arena set piece from the 2002 film Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, which entered production shortly after the release of Gladiator, has been compared to the arena setting in the Scott film. And I would say, yeah, probably absolutely. Absolutely. That is something that George Lucas would definitely do. Gladiator, that's popular. Let's whack that in this movie. The character Maximus was placed 12th in Total Film list of 50 best movie heroes of all time. And yeah, there seems to be a lot of love for Maximus. He was featured on a 55-cent Australian Legends postage stamp series.
Well, of course there's love for him. Yeah, he's the Chad.
He is the Chad. And yeah, because Russell Crowe's, of course, Australian, but there's no love for... Where's the love for Joaquin Phoenix here? Joaquin Phoenix had an incredible performance. And we haven't mentioned that. It was actually a good performance. Yeah, it was great, and Joaquin Phoenix is great in everything he does, apparently. But
yeah, he actually kind of is.
Yeah, he actually kind of may be the best actor in human history. I don't know, but yeah,
weird Joker stands.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing. He's really good in this, but he didn't win Best Supporting Actor. There's no fucking stamps of him, are there? He's not one of the greatest movie characters of all time, but yeah, I think he's the perfect villain, And like I said, he's of course he's a virgin, like we said. He is the virgin in that Virgin Chad meme, but he is also, like, the way he plays it. It's really good. Just the essence of someone who's fucked up and evil, and not just pure evil because they are evil, because that's what they have to be. It's like you can see there's a reason why he is evil. He's fucked in the head. He's just not happy with anything in his life. And yeah, Joaquin Phoenix does a great job of that. And we should probably mention that earlier.
Yeah, actually, we probably should have. I don't know yet.
So Michael, let us conclude on this movie. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. So the thing about this film is, I kind of feel like one of the issues at the center of it is why make it? And I guess the other question is why watch it? Because that's kind of what I think when I watch this. Because obviously Ridley Scott, he did what was that other film? Kingdom of Heaven, about the Crusades, and I think that film, as far as I know, is pretty historically on track, and it's about this conflict between Saladin and the King Baldwin or whatever, and it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the Crusades. And you kind of watch and you think, I guess Ridley Scott was really interested in the Crusades and he wanted to tell a story about the Crusades. But you watch this film and you think, well, what was Ridley Scott interested in? Because he didn't tell a story about Rome, really, because the entire story he told
Michael,
was complete fiction.
I've actually got to stop here because I've got a quote which he said, which I was going to tell in my conclusion, which pretty much answers your question.
Okay.
So, well, yeah, sorry. Scott cited Spartacus and Ben-Hur as influences. These movies were part of my cinema-going youth. But this is the crucial thing. At the dawn of the new millennium, I thought this might be the ideal time to revisit what may have been the most important period of the last 2,000 years, if not all recorded history, the apex and beginning of the decline of the greatest military and political power the world has ever known. So it was like, it's the millennium, it's been 2,000 years. Let's catch up with maybe the greatest thing we've ever seen in the last 2,000 years. I don't know if he actually believed that. He, like I said, he got inspired from seeing a gladiatorial painting, but his thing was, well, it's the millennium. Let's look back at the Romans and see what they did.
Yeah, but that is weird because obviously he mentions looking back at the decline of it, even though this film completely
it ends,
skirts around the decline of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. He says decline, but it ends with, things look good for Rome. Things look brighter for Rome. The film depicts Rome as being quite shit, and then it's going to be good again. But in actual fact, the other way around, it's quite good, and it's about to turn shit. So yeah. Ridley Scott, I think it's safe to say he can say what he likes, but he clearly just wanted to make a film, a cool gladiator.
Yeah, that's the thing, because ultimately, you look at the main ways of evaluating a film, and thematically there's something there, but emotionally there's not really much there. And yeah, frankly, the performance of Phoenix is probably the biggest standout, but the main character isn't that interesting. in terms of the plot and the tension, there's not much there because, like we already said, Maximus is just so much better than Commodus in every single way. That it's like, well, that's not particularly interesting. It's funny because one of my complaints I've complained about before, I complained about it with Seven, for example. I say I don't like the idea of just the all-powerful villain who just always plays all the cards in his hand and that kind of stuff. It's like a trope I don't like. This film is the opposite of that. The villain is just so nothing, even though he's emotionally interesting. But overall, yeah, there's not too much that you can to point to this film and be like, yeah, this is really good. Apart from the fact that it is competent and obviously the way it's set up and the way it's put together is interesting. And to me, honestly, I am thinking quite firmly it is a high 5, which is, maybe you might say not that nice, but ultimately, I think, yeah, when you look at kind of what's not there, you're like, oh, well, you really need more there for me to be nicer to it. I'm going to put it below Notting Hill, it's a very similar film, and above 28 Weeks Later. That's where I'm putting Gladiator. So,
okay,
yeah, high 5.
Here's the thing. I think it's much better than Braveheart, but I gave Braveheart a 5. So I can't really give it a 5 if I said that. I've got to give it. That's true. I'm going to give it like a 6. How about that? A 6 out of 10. 3 stars. Because yes, you could say the plot is quite simple. I said it before. I said it again. It's the Virgin Commodus against the Chad Maximus. That's all you need to know. And it's quite a simple story as well. The character arc of Maximus is quite shit. He doesn't really have much of a character. I do like the theme, but yeah, it's not really portrayed in the best way it could be, especially not by Maximus, who should be central to that theme of why is Rome so brutal. He should be very much against Rome and hate being a gladiator, but that isn't really espoused apart from one famous line. And yeah, that line is kind of remembered as a great line, forgetting the context of it. And then, of course, there's the political stuff, which is nice, but there's not a payoff as well. So you have all of these issues, and then the historical accuracy as well. That's an issue too. And it's like, yes, it's not great. It's got a lot of holes in it, but at the end of the day, it's a solid action movie. It doesn't have any massive issues, and I guess the biggest issues are the historical accuracy bit. Really, out of everything. But Joaquin Phoenix is great. And yeah, it's the story is quite simple, but as Commodus says, it is striking, and that's what saves it. Really, it is quite a striking story, and of course we have to look at how good the sets were. Of course, I was thinking that watching it, like, wow, they must have spent a lot of money on this movie, and they did. But to get a real great feel of ancient Rome. Yeah, with so many extras, Michael. So many extras and so many scenes. Must have been so expensive. So yeah, it's nowhere near Best Picture level, of course. I think everybody knows that. But I think 6 out of 10 is a fair rating for it overall. So Michael, that is it. 6 out of 10. Not great. Definitely not, like I said, winning any Oscars, but not awful. So there you go. What do we do next week, Michael?
Well, next week. Yeah, we're looking at a pretty, a film that came out very recently. So from something that came out 20 years ago to Wonder Woman, 1984.
Wonder Woman, 1984. And we're doing that because it's the dawn of a new era.
And we literally did Wonder Woman like a month ago.
Yeah, so it's still fresh in our minds. Yeah, and that movie is... we're gonna spend quite a bit of time on that, apparently. I haven't seen it yet, but looks like we are. So yeah, join us for that next week. Thank you for listening. We have been selecting and reflecting on Gladiator because it's been 20 years since it won Best Picture at the Oscars, and yeah, I think it's fair to say didn't really deserve that award. Join us next week for Wonder Woman 1984, another historical epic. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.